God, how should I explain this? Hey, hello team, my name is Monique. Welcome back to the Cauldron, where we today are going to do a wrap-up of my October TBR. In case you weren't aware, this is BookWitch, my channel, and I, for the very first time in October, did my TBR Tombola, which is a TBR game I have made up myself, where I basically pick 7 numbers and I have then added prompts to each of these numbers. The TBR game is not an odd one out in Booktube. Many very cool people have made ones. I will leave a link to a couple of them down below. I will also leave a link to my very first TBR Tombola, and you can check that out if you would like to. But basically, this is my wrap up and also walkthrough of what happens when I actually finish the book. Here's the thing, I pick 7 numbers at the beginning of each month, and then at the end of the month, this is my bingo sheet. So basically I have decided that over 3 months I get to put the number on the thing. So if my number is on my actual plate, I get to cross it out. And then if I get a whole line, I am allowed to buy a book. Win-win for me. Obviously some months the numbers that I have picked will not be on here. Too bad for me. That's just how it goes. But basically this runs from October to December, and I'm just very excited about trying this. If I do not finish a prompt, I do not get to have the number, even though it is on the plate board thing. Anyway, let's move along. Here goes nothing. I read 10 books in October, which came to roughly 4,096 words. Solid amount of reading. Most of them were actually on my TBR, some of them were not, but we are just going to walk through them as I read them, and then we are going to see whether or not they are on my little slip of bingo. Basically, I started off the week by reading a OwnVoices, a book, a contemporary one at that, which was the Henna Wars by Adiba Jaigidar, which is a very soft female contemporary romance about a young Bangladeshi girl who is sort of trying to get her family to accept the fact that she might be a lesbian, and at the same time she is also part of this business class in her school where they have to set up their own businesses, and she ends up in this rivalry with a young girl called Flavia, who she may or may not have a crush on. And it is adorable. There are some very adoring scenes, some beautiful language, and I'm very excited about what else this author is going to come out with. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Apparently I like contemporary if it's just gay enough and soft enough, and this came up on my TBR Tombola as number 45, so let us see whether or not it is on my bingo sheet. 45 is not on the thing, but that is okay. We will move along. Next up, I read a YA fantasy, and for that I finally got around to reading Forest of Souls by Laurie M. Lee, which is a sort of Asian-inspired fantasy where we follow a young woman who her entire life has thought of herself as meaningless, and the only thing that she thinks that can make her better is if she becomes this spy of the crown, basically. But all of a sudden she finds out that she has this kind of soul magic when she accidentally brings her best friend back to life. I enjoyed parts of this a lot. I also thought that it had a lot of work to do, so I'm very excited about the sequel. I ended up giving it 3 stars, mainly because of the atmosphere and the world building. The characters were lacking a little bit in my sort of taste, but at the same time I did enjoy it because it was just like YA. Forest of Souls was under the number 7, so let us have a look to see whether or not it is on my thingy. It is not. That is another one that's just gonna sneak up here. Anyway, the next book that I read, which was another young adult fantasy, I tried to get them out real quick last month, was A Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This is one of the only arcs that I actually own. I absolutely adore it. This is a West African inspired fantasy where we follow a young girl who is basically the product of these two very strong witch doctor lines, but she has no magic, and basically her country is slightly falling apart, so she does the only thing that she thinks she can do, which is sells part of her life for magic to stop this this child stealer. And I adored the mythology, I adored the different perspectives that we get in this book. However, I did think that there were some plot holes. I don't know if that is entirely because of the fact that this is an ARC and not a finished copy, but I am supremely excited about reading the next book, which is coming out early next year. This came in on my TBR as number 10, and we also do not have a 10 on here. I don't know if there are any of my numbers from this month, but basically we are just going to do our best. Next up, I read a book that was not on my TBR, which was Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco, which was an e-arc from NetCali. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars because I got severely annoyed with the setup of it. Basically, this is a story of two twin sister witches in like Italy inspired world who their entire lives have been told that they cannot trust the demon princess, and then very early on one of the twins get murdered and the other one sets out on a revenge plot to get her back, or to figure out like what has happened to her sister. And basically, I don't know if it is because I have read a lot of paranormal romance that I feel like I have seen this plot before and have seen it done better, but I did not love it. I got annoyed at this sort of pacing. I got annoyed at the fact that the twin that we meet in the beginning is a really strong, self-made character, and she just changes, obviously, from the death of her sister. But I got so annoyed. So many people are loving this one, and I wasn't crazy about it, and I felt like the ending was just blah. So yeah, read that, did that, done with that, don't need it. Next up, I did sneak in a little actual paranormal romance, which was this one. This is Nalini Singh's Wolf Rain, which is the third or fourth book in her new series, the Trinity Accord, which is set in her Psy changeling world. Basically, this is the traditional shifter romance. Nalini Psy is one of my absolute favorite in it. So shifters, or in this case also the Psy, which in her world are like a different kind of human who have mental abilities, so like telekinesis. This was just sweet and short, and her series has an overarching plot which I absolutely adore. This is not my favorite of the series, but I do absolutely adore it, and I swallowed it whole. But yeah, it was still not on my TBR, so continuing on, I finally got around to reading The Boneshard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, which is a new adult fantasy with a absolutely amazing magical sort of build up and a magical world. Basically, we are following a young girl who is the daughter of the emperor of these floating islands, and basically she is trying to prove to her father that she deserves to be taught this very special bone shard magic. Other than the young princess, we are also following an array of other characters in this novel. We have queer rep, we have some wonderful weird rep, there's like this magical creature, and I absolutely adore it. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, mainly just because I felt like the ending was a little bit too fastly wrapped up. I cannot wait for the next book. I'm literally like blown away by the world building in this book and the sort of like the writing of it. It does not feel like a debut book. It's just wonderful and amazing. This came in as an adult fantasy on my TBR Tombola at number 11, and I believe I actually have number 11 on my thing, so I get to cross that out now. First thing off the list. Yeah, yay me. Next up, I once again went off course and ended up reading The Blackstone Ritual by Swearingen, Durham, who is a North American young author. This is a sort of love letter to the young adult fantasy. I felt like it was quite on the crossing the line between middle grade and young adult. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say that it is the most amazing new thing out there, but I definitely thought as a debut author, I think that Swearingen did a really great job. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and I'm very excited about what comes next. Also, I just adore this edition that I got from Fae Crate 1, the cover. You can go away. and then they're like underneath, absolutely stunning. So yes, I really did enjoy this, and it was just like a nice little palette cleanser. Next up, I read Elapso by Darcy Little Badger, which is also my favorite book that I read this month. It is a solid 5-star. It is basically a alternative reality to our own. We are situated in an America that is shaped by magic, and we follow Elapso, who is an Earth native young asexual girl who sets out to figure out who killed her cousin. She has a ghost dog, she has a best friend who is like a descendant of a Fae king, and it is just absolutely amazing and beautiful. It is illustrated by Rena Kai. So at the top of each chapter we get a little story that is not quite the story that we are reading, but is connected to the story. It is absolutely amazing, and I cannot like recommend it enough. I adore it. I want 700 more books in this series, but I think it's a standalone and it hurts me. It came in as number 38, which is Own Voices, and I do not have 38 on my little thingy, which is sad, but you know, we're just gonna move on. Next up, I read another Own Voices, this time fantasy, and I read A Song of Wrath and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown, which I ended up giving 4 stars. This is a South African inspired fantasy that I absolutely adored. We are following 2 main characters. We are following the Crown Princess Karina, and we are following Malik, who is a young refugee, and basically they both set out to save someone that they love, but to save that someone they have to kill the other one, and it is just a very wonderfully atmospheric young adult fantasy, and like I absolutely adored their chemistry. I felt like their romance was very like well set up, and I cannot wait for the next book, which is coming out really soon, and I really want it like right now. This came in as number 41, so let's see if it's on my little bingo sheet. It is not. It is not on the bingo sheet, so we do currently only have 1 cross out. And then last but not least, I read my last book on my TBR, almost. This was number 14, which is another adult fantasy. And for that, I set out to read The Puppy War and its 2 followers. So The Puppy War is an adult fantasy which is inspired by Chinese history. In it we follow Rin, who is a young orphan girl who basically somehow passes this exam to become a student at this very prestigious military academy, and half of the book is set in this school setting and the other half of the book is a serious war fantasy. It is crushing and heart-wrenching and absolutely amazingly written, and I did only read the first book, but because this is my very first TBR Tombola, I am going to allow myself to have this 1 book, because technically I don't have to put 3 books on a TBR for a single prompt. So let us see if 14 is on my sheet. It is not. So yes, this was my whole stack of books that I read in October. I feel like I should be quite proud of myself. There is also The Kingdom of the Wicked, obviously as an ebook on here. I had a really good reading month. I definitely went back to enjoying some of the young adult fantasy that I was reading. I, however, will not say that I had a good month on the bingo sheet. I may change the rules for this, but currently we got 1 cross out. Very proud of myself, and I definitely think that having this TBR helped me read some more books that I may have had like hiding in the back for a little while. So if you did enjoy this, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button at the same time so you don't miss out on any more videos from me, including my wonderful TBR. See how I get on. I vlog weekly, so you can watch those if you would like. Let me know what you read in the month of October down below, and then take care of yourself. I'm proud of you and you are doing great. I will see you guys really soon with another video. Bye. Thinking about buying an actual X stamp, but because all I got with the Tombola is these little blue thingies that you can put on, which I guess works for if you're going to use them over and over again, I will not. These will be single use, and then I may draw one.